So this story covers something that happens all too often to travelers. Poop.
Hello and welcome to 2 Beers Till Takeoff, the podcast inspired by conversations overheard at the airport bar. Join Phil as he grabs a couple of beers and chats with interesting people from around the world, sharing expert knowledge and hilarious stories that you won't find in your guidebook. So pull up a stool and get ready for an adventure as we explore worlds of travel and beyond with 2 Beers Till Takeoff.
4 hours in a Taliban headquarters.
I had dog meat in Laos.
Was it golden retriever?
Smack a dirty old smooch on our beautiful fish right here.
He didn't die, but he fell down the side of the mountain.
Hello and welcome to 2 Beers Till Takeoff. My name is Phil and today I'm going to share with you guys one of my stories from Morocco. Before we get into that though, I want to share some exciting news with you guys. So, 2 Beers Till Takeoff has officially found a sponsor. So this has been a goal of mine. I said at the beginning of the year, and fuck, it's already happened. So I was pretty fucking pumped. Just recently found out this week. So in the coming weeks, I'll be able to give some more details around this deal and to offer a promo code and a discount for you folks. So stay tuned for that. Another goal I set out this year is to aim for bigger guests. Now, what I mean when I say bigger guests is guests that are in higher demand. More specifically, I've been targeting guests that have been on the Joe Rogan podcast or the Joe Rogan Experience. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but I am in discussions with a few guests who were on the Joe Rogan Experience. One was a world-class outdoorsman who will be on, I think, probably April or May. And the other is an author of an international best-selling book with that recording date to be determined. So, fucking exciting. I've come to realize that, guests in high demand take much longer than, some other people. And because of that, I guess that's why we're having a Morocco episode today. Also, I guess if for those listening, if you have a guest that you'd like for me to have on, like send me a DM on Instagram, send me a message on Facebook, leave a comment on YouTube. Like I've decided that I'm going for it this year. Like there's no limit to who I can possibly have on this podcast. I'm looking for this podcast to be the #1 travel podcast. So if you guys want someone on the podcast, let me know, send in your requests. Let's fucking get it. And lastly, I guess an update on the merch side of things. So I'm planning on selling 2 Beers Till Takeoff t-shirts and sweatshirts. My plan is to offer high quality clothing. There's nothing worse. You know what I mean? You buy some merch or you buy some clothes from a podcast or you get clothes from an artist or at a concert and it doesn't fit, or, you put it in the dryer and then it like shrinks 2 sizes. Like that's just shitty. Like I want to offer something that's high quality. So my plan is to offer a product that will be up to my standards, high quality. And so I guess for those who are watching on YouTube, you must be saying, oh, well, I guess you've already got your clothes because I'm wearing a 2 Beers Till Takeoff sweatshirt right now. Well, this one that I purchased with the company I'm dealing with, the quality isn't up to date, or it isn't up to my standards. So I'm still kind of looking for that high quality printer, which I haven't found yet. So when I do, I will let you know. And they'll be available. Now, let's get to Morocco. So this story covers something that happens all too often to travelers. Poop. So this happened in 2016 while I was studying in Germany. And listen, I was a decent student at that time, but I maybe didn't look at like how the semesters when they started, and I just assumed that they were the same as North America. But in German university, school begins in October, and then between semesters of the first and second semester, there's like a 3-4 week gap. And like I realized that this was the case in like January, so I was like, fuck, like I didn't really have plans, but so I one of my buddies that I was hanging out with in Germany was Leo K, the official voice of 2 Beers Till Takeoff, right? Leo K, who's also been on for an episode. And so I, messaged Leo, say, hey, like, where are we going? Like, what are we doing? So we decided that we wanted to do a board sport somewhere. So our options were either we were going to go snowboarding in the Australian Alps or we were going to go surfing in Morocco. So after kind of checking the price for these trips, Morocco was by far the cheapest. Like flights were like only 200 euros return, and we found a hostel on the coast. It was like $5 a night. and then you could like, I think it was another 10, $15 to get the gear and the course to surf or whatever. So it was just essentially the price of like our entire time there was going to be like the price it would be for like one day in the Australian Alps. We're like, fuck it, we're going to Morocco. So we book it, and then we were going to leave like a few weeks later. For those who kind of don't know me, I would describe myself as someone who's pretty nonchalant when it comes to travel. I guess in my past, my travels have been pretty chill in terms of preparation for that. And this is an example, this story is an example of a time where it bit me in the ass. So we decided we were going surfing in Morocco. And this was February, right? So in my head, we're going to a place that's, in the desert, it's in the Sahara, it's in Africa, it's going to be super hot, right? Well, no. So I packed basically a couple swim trunks, a couple t-shirts, some flip-flops, and it was cold in Germany when we were leaving. So like I, put some jeans on, and I had like my Shell North Face jacket to just get to the airport and it'd be warm. So, and that's it, like no fucking sweatshirts, nothing. Cause I was like, dude, it's Morocco. It's going to be super hot. That's all I had in my bag. It's fucking stupid. So we land in Marrakesh, Morocco, and it's fucking freezing. Basically, I right away know that like I'm in trouble because I did not pack for, like I didn't check the weather. I just assumed Morocco was gonna be hot, right? So we get to the hostel, and my hostel is like within the walls of like the main square of Marrakesh. And when I walk in, I realize that the hostel is like an open air hostel, meaning like the middle of the building is like hollowed out. So you can, if you're in the middle of the building, you can look up and just see the sky. But it seemed like a pretty cool hostel. There was a really cool atmosphere, a bunch of friendly people. And when we got there, people were like drinking and, smoking hash. And Leo and I were there with one of his buddies from back home, in Finland, his buddy Nico. So anyways, we get there, and then people from the hostel kept asking us if we were going to join this trip to the desert that they were going. We're going to the desert. You guys come to the desert. Well, we hadn't really planned to do that. So we'd planned to, kind of land in Marrakesh, spend a few days there, and then head down south to do some surfing. But we were like, you know what? This sounds pretty cool, to go sleep in the desert. And anyway, so we said, fuck it. It sounds like a good time. So I go to the hostel owner and I ask him questions about the trip. I'm like, hey, like, is it cold in the desert? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's super cold. It's way colder than it is now. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, all right. Okay. So like, surrounded by shops in the main center of town. I was like, there must be some places that are open that I can go buy a sweatshirt or a jacket or something like that. He's like, oh, like at this time of night, no, everything's closed. And he's like, unfortunately, by the time that you guys are going to be leaving tomorrow morning, everything won't be open yet. So you'll have to figure it out like on the trip. But like you should find a place maybe along the way that you'll be able to stop and get a sweatshirt. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't sound very very encouraging. But you know what? Fuck it. I'll figure it out. So that night, like in the open air hostel, like I had to wear all my clothes with my North Face jackets. I had like 3-4 t-shirts on, all my shorts and my jeans, and then my North Face jacket on top just to keep me warm. Like it was fucking cold. Like I'm a Canadian, so I'm allowed to diagnose if it's really cold, and I can gladly report that it was very cold. So we leave the next morning on our adventure. And so we're kind of just chatting with the driver. He's just giving us kind of the plans of the day. And he's like, yeah, we've got to cross through the Atlas Mountains and then like down the mountains, and then we'll be through to the desert. And that's where we'll be sleeping for the night. So when we get about halfway up the mountain, we stop for some like mint tea and just kind of get some snacks and stuff like that. And then like start noticing that there's like snow. And I'm like, oh shit, like little patches of snow, and get back in the car and start going more towards the summit. Like there's more and more snow, and like the roads themselves aren't really good. The higher we're going, the roads are just getting more and more fucked. Like they're basically one lane blind turns with no guardrails, and like as we're going closer and closer to the summit, like the more and more snow there is. And while we're weaving through these roads, I asked the driver of our van jokingly, I was like, hey, like we the van's got snow tires, right? And he's like, ha ha ha. I just like looked at the Finnish boys and I was like, oh, we're in trouble. Holy fuck. So we get to what seems like the summit at this point, and it's just like a full-blown snowstorm. It's fucking blizzard, visibility's limited, the roads are even fucking worse. And now every single turn is, you can just see the drop, and it's like kilometers down. Like it's not like a maybe we'll survive, it's like we're definitely gonna die if this guy makes a wrong turn. And I'm basically praying to all the gods, like I've converted, I'm fucking just get me through this experience. Anyway, so we get through the summit, we get to the bottom, and later on we actually found out that the road had been closed due to the storm. There's too many accidents, and they closed it off. And so we made it down to the mountain. We stopped at a touristic site, and luckily there I was able to grab a sweatshirt, so I was covered for, freezing my ass off in the desert. So that was good. Anyway, so we passed the last village, and then we could kind of see just straight desert. Like it was just, you just see like sand everywhere. Anyways, we reached as far as we could go, as we could drive, and then we just we stopped, and there was these guys, and then we jumped on some dromedaries. Anyways, getting on dromedaries, I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but it's a really interesting experience because the dromedaries are laying down on the ground and you get on its back. It's got one hump instead of two, so you're not kind of cradled between two humps. You're really just on one hump. And then it goes ass up, and then its front legs then go up. So you're kind of going forward, like almost falling down, and then you get jumped back up. Anyways, it's a really interesting experience. So after we got on the dromedaries, our bus driver kind of left us with these new guys, and we start walking into the desert, and it's getting dark. And we don't really know these dudes. They don't really speak English. We just kind of hope that these are the right dudes. We're not going to get kidnapped, and everything's going to be fine. So now we're kind of walking, and after a while it gets like pitch black. You can barely see anything. It's freezing, and we're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, right? We're like, holy fuck. And finally we see these tents, some lights, and we get greeted by Berbers, who are they're like an ethnic group that are natives of North Africa. And those are the people that were hosting us. So they cooked for us, and later they performed a drum ceremonies, and it was really cool. It was really interesting to kind of talk to them and how they identify, as a different kind of culture than Morocco. They're Berbers, they're different altogether, culture. And one thing that's kind of funny about Morocco is per Moroccan law, consumption of hash or cannabis products can lead up to 10 years in prison. But weirdly enough, it's fucking everywhere. And it's no different on that night, because walked out of the tent and these Berber dudes are just smoking some hash. And I mean, yeah, it's really prevalent in Morocco. It's quite popular. So yeah, we spent the night in the Sahara Desert, and then the next night we go and we do a detour because we couldn't go back up the mountain, and then we get back to Marrakesh. So once we got back to Marrakesh, our next step in the trip was really to get the logistics for how we were going to go to this surfing village that we were going to, this village called Tagazout, where we were planning to surf for a week or so. So we met these 3 Scottish girls that are at our hostel, and they were going there as well. They'd just actually been robbed and didn't really want to take public transport. So because of that, we decided to all kind of split a taxi, get a big van, and just all 6 of us, we could just split the fare, and it would make sense. And it was pretty close to what you typically pay for a bus anyway. So we get to Tagazout, and Tagazout is about 3-4 hours away in the south south from Marrakesh, on the coast, so on the Atlantic Ocean. And Tagazout was this little cool village. It's got about 500 people, and it's there's beaches and stuff like that. It's really nice. And in the town, just kind of walking around, you could quickly just tell that it's just basically locals and just surfer dudes from New Zealand and Australia, and who are just kind of in the streets, these hippie dudes. And so it was a cool vibe. It was a really nice place to kind of go and relax. And also what was nice is that the weather was hot. What I was expecting from Moroccan weather was definitely there in Tagazout. So not my smartest moment, but on our first day of surfing, I went to use the hostel sunscreen. And after the first, session of surfing, I got back and I was like, fuck, my face kind of hurts a little bit, you know, it wasn't burnt, but it was, you know, a little crispy. And then on the next day, I decided, you know, I'll double up, you know, sunscreen, whatever. I'll put, reapply, you know, let it dry, reapply, and whatever. And then the same thing, like I was starting to get burnt. And then on the third day, like same thing, it's even worse. So then I went to the hostel and I was like, hey, like this sunscreen, is it waterproof? Because like I couldn't read it. It was all in Arabic. And he was like, oh no, this isn't waterproof. So like I was just on the water. We're just basically like the sunlight's reflecting, and yeah. So essentially my face got really fucked up. I was just got like a rash all over my face, like welts from the sunburn because it was pretty hot. So I had to sit out a few days to let my skin heal. And so Leo and Nico were surfing all day, and I was just kind of staying behind. And well, you know, when in Rome, like what do you do while you're just kind of chilling in Morocco and with all these surfer dudes? Well, you do what everybody else is doing, which is smoke hash, right? So I would just chill under the roof canopy of like the top of this, like our hostel had just kind of an open air rooftop, and there was a little canopy. I was just kind of chilling there, enjoying the weather, keeping my face out of the sun, and just chilling. And like every day, which there's this really funny story. So every day in the village, there would be a call to prayer. So like all around this small village, there were speakers like around Tagazut, and they would do like their sermon or whatever. So like this happened about 5 times a day, and it would take typically like 5 to 10 minutes. It'd be like Allahu Akbar. Anyways, it would go through the prayer. But on the Friday, I'd smoked some hash, and then the prayer started, and it just kept going and going and going. Like I was starting to trip out, thinking that I was like losing track of time. But it turns out that on the Friday, it's the religious day for Muslims. And because of that, there's like a longer prayer. It's like essentially the Sunday for like Catholics. Like it's a big thing. So I didn't know, but I was just starting to freak out. I was like, holy fuck, man, is this forever? Eventually ended. But yeah, it was a funny experience. But I guess just kind of a sidebar, an interesting bit about alcohol in this part of the world. So you can purchase booze, but it's kind of, you got to be a little bit secretive about it. So you can buy it, but it has to be kind of on the DL. Like I've kind of talked about this before on the podcast. I think where we kind of talked about getting booze in Muslim countries, but like for those who haven't heard, but like for example in Marrakesh, you'd have to go to like a grocery store. You'd have to leave the grocery store and then go to like this side alley. There was like a little door, like what you could barely tell that it existed. Go down some like sketchy steps, and then once you got to the downstairs, like it was just like a full-fledged like everything, like a brand new liquor store with all the booze that you'd ever want. So it's definitely a tricky spot to drink, but you can still do it if you find the right places. If I remember, beer was expensive, if I remember correctly. And in Tagazut too, like they didn't actually allow the sale of alcohol, so you had to go to a neighboring village in Agadir to go and drink. So like or to get the alcohol. You could drink in Tagazut, they just didn't sell it there. So by the end of the week, Leo and Nico were heading back to Finland, and my face was like not back to normal, but it was starting to get better. It was less red. So I decided that I wanted to stay behind and continue surfing. So I planned to make it up the coast to another surfing village called Essaouira. And anyway, so Leo and Leo and Nico left. And yeah, so before I left for my journey up to Essaouira, I had to hit up an ATM. So there was a guy in my room. His name was Ian. He's from Ireland. And he had a car, so he also needed some cash. So he's like, yeah, just jump in with me. So at this point, I had about $10 or 10 euros worth of their money. It would have been, I think, like 50 dirhams or whatever left in cash. So we went to a neighboring village, and unfortunately, when we get there, we put our cards in. The cards don't work, so the ATM didn't work. So on our way back to Tagazut, Ian was speeding, and he gets stopped by the cops. And so a bit of information or background on this part of the world, but like the way that things work here, they issue a fine and you kind of have to pay the fine then and there, or else you're going to jail. Like, it's not like here's your fine, like pay it in 30 days. Like we have, like, it's, you got to fucking pay there or you got to bribe. So the fine was like 100. And between him and I, we didn't have like the 100 that the cop was looking for. So I was like, fuck, like we're definitely going to jail. Like, anyways, we tell him this, and the cop gets like agitated, and he's like, he thinks that we're like refusing to pay the fine, but I'm like, sir, like we just don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, the cop gets agitated and angry, and he like pulls us out of the car, and he's like, he starts asking us questions and stuff like that, searching us and stuff. And I hid my money in my sock because I was smart, right? But anyway, so I pull out my French card, so I can speak French. So I start talking to the cop in French. I'm like, hey, like, I'm explaining him the situation. I was like, hey, like, we were at the ATM in this other village, and the ATM didn't work. So like we would have paid the fine, but it's just, unfortunately, we don't have any cash on us. I told him, my father's a policeman in Canada, and just talking about like I have a lot of respect for the police force, blah blah blah, which I do. But just like, luckily for us, because of that, that disarmed the guy, and then he let us go without a warning. He let us go with a warning. So that was just a fucking close one, man. We could have been in jail there. Fuck. So I stayed in Tagazout for a few days because I still wasn't able to get cash, and so I kept surfing for a few days, with the waterproof sunscreen this time. And then on one day when I went back to the hostel early because I was having some stomach issues, and I get on the toilet and it was fucking straight diarrhea. So I remember when I sat down, it was like unleashing the gates of hell in my asshole. Like it was really, really, really bad. Like I could not stop shitting after I sat down. So at this point, I was in this hostel. It was pretty full. And there was about like 30, 40 people in the hostel, and there was only 2 bathrooms. Like the case became so severe with my diarrhea that at the end of this, like one of the toilets was essentially mine because I had to use it so often. And I was trying to, stop the diarrhea or calm it down, take Pepto-Bismol, Imodium, 1 pill, 2 pills, and like it wasn't working. Like the rash on my face also got worse, and at this point, like things were so bad, like I was just dehydrated and just tired, and just like, after a few days I was just feeling like shit. So I just like decided to book a flight early home, because I essentially at that point I thought I was going to die. Like I was barely eating, and anyways, it was just really not fun. So the next morning, I booked my flight to leave in 2 days. So like the next morning when I woke up, I was leaving for Marrakesh, and my flight back to Germany was the next morning after that, right? So there were some German guys that were in my dorm, and they were also heading out that way that morning. So I decided to tag along with them because I didn't know where the bus station was, right? So we'd come in with the Scottish girls, but we took a taxi. So we didn't go by the bus station. I didn't know where it was. Didn't have any data on my phone. So I decided to tag along with them, and just kind of take my chance that they would get me to the fucking bus station. So we took a taxi to Agadir, and then when we get to Agadir, the guys are like, hey, can we stop by the waterfront here? We just want to see, there's some sights that you can see. And they're like, then we'll walk up to the bus station or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is not good, man. Like, I have to shit right now. So it's like I'm following these guys, so I have no choice, but I'm like, fuck, this is not good news. We do the sites, or we walk by the sites, and then we start walking up the hill to go to the bus station. So anyway, so it's fucking hot. I'm carrying my bag. I'm so dehydrated. It's 15 minutes into the walk up the hill. I can tell that the German guys lost. Not because I understand German, because my German at that point was pretty minimal. I wasn't doing too good in German class. But the guy is just looking at his phone, and we're walking in circles, basically. And I remember at one point, we were literally walking through a field, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on? So we finally find Wi-Fi, and I'm stressed because this is the last bus to Marrakesh from Agadir for the day, and my flight is leaving the next morning, meaning if I don't make this bus, I ain't gonna make this next flight. So finally, the German guy, he admits that he's lost, but he finds Wi-Fi, And he's like, oh, like, I know where we are. And he says, we're a little far from this bus station, but if we run, we can make it. And when he said that, I was like, listen, dude, like, I offered him to pay for a cab because I knew that if I was going to run, that essentially shit was going to be streaking down my legs. Like, it was at that point. That's how bad my stomach was. Like, my stomach was cramping like a motherfucker. So I flagged a taxi. I sit in the front seat, and because, I can speak French, I bargained with the guy and the taxi guy, and it's, 20 dirhams, which is like, I don't know, like $5. German guys get in the back, and I'm set with that price. But the German guy, he had been ripped off earlier in a taxi ride because the guy didn't turn his meter on. So he tells the taxi guy, turn your meter on, turn your meter on. And I'm turning back to the guy. I'm like, no, like it's okay. I've already set a price with the guy. We're good. Like, I'm paying for it. Like, just chill. And the guy's like, no. He's going to try to rip you off. Put the meter on. Meanwhile, the guy starts driving and he keeps insisting on the meter. Put the meter. No, the guy's going to try to screw you. Like, put the meter. And I'm telling him, shut up. And now the driver's getting upset. He's driving. He's going 60 kilometers an hour. And he's looking back at the guy. Like, and it's a three-way argument in the car while this guy's driving 60 kilometers. I look in the front of the car and I'm like, oh shit, there's a guy crossing the road on his bike. I yell, hey! Taxi driver slams the brakes. We almost fucking kill this guy. I look back at the German guy. I say, shut the fuck up. I paid for this. Shut the fuck up. I cannot deal with your bullshit right now. We continue driving. We make it to the bus station. So we get to the bus station alive, and with a few minutes to spare, I know that I need to take a shit before this bus journey, because if I shit on the bus, it's going to be really bad, and I don't think people are going to really like me. So the bus station's bathroom is like in the basement of the building, so I'm walking down, and like I walk by the door, and I remember thinking, like, it's kind of weird that guy was selling toilet paper. Anyways, keep going. Go to one of the stalls. When I get there, it's a fucking horror scene. It's basically a hole with shit in, around. Yeah, there's just shit everywhere. And yeah, at this point, I knew that I couldn't use this toilet because a lot of my last poops required a shower afterwards. It was some bad ones. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go to the bathroom on the bus. So I go back upstairs, get on the bus, and quickly realize that there's no toilet on the bus. And we're now in for a 4-hour drive to Marrakesh. So I get my bag, I look for my last Imodiums, pop my last 3 Imodiums, and I'm like, holy shit, like praying to God that I'm going to survive this trip. So 1 hour later, my prayer is answered. The bus stops at a gas station, or like to go gas, and I just sprint to the bathroom. All I can say is that it was a photo finish, and after that I felt a lot better. I got some Gatorade, got some more Imodium, or like some diarrhea pills, and I survived the trip back to Marrakesh. So that was, what a moment. So I got back to Germany, and per my symptoms, kind of looking at them online, I think I had typhoid fever, because if you look at, like, I had the rash, I had the fever, the chills, diarrhea, disorientation. Could have been something else, but that's what it kind of sounds like. I also realized that when Leo and Nico had left and I'd resumed surfing, like, it had rained quite a bit, and Tagazud is built on a hill and doesn't have a sewer system, so that's maybe where I got sick. So all to say that I am alive. I learned that if you're going to a country, research to see if you need vaccines or drugs before going. Go see a travel pharmacist if you can, because oh my fucking God, this will avoid just so many issues. I had to learn the hard way, and I can happily say that ever since I've had this experience, I've gone and done this every single time before going, whether it's Peru or Colombia or Brazil, like I've always gone there, and it's just good to be covered and to understand what kind of dangers that you can be putting yourself into in that different climate, because you're not in the same place that you're likely not in the same place as where you're from. So there's new shit that you have to know about, so, or be covered. So go see your travel pharmacist and you will live to see another day. But kind of my Morocco trip overall, like, it might be a bit controversial to say, because I know that I've heard from a few people recently that Morocco hasn't been, like, maybe isn't as good as it was. But I personally really enjoyed Morocco. Like, bad shit happened to me while I was there, but for me it was like a bucket list country. And just to go to the Sahara Desert, the culture of Morocco, the mountains were really underrated. Like, I had no idea that the Atlas Mountains were so unreal. And as scary as they were just still just mind-blowing. The surf was also cool. And I just, the little things I thought were really cool in Morocco, like the mint tea. Like, the mint tea there is just so ingrained into the culture. It's just like kind of having a coffee or having a beer. It's just kind of, it's their beer or coffee. Like, it's just so ingrained in the culture, and it's just so good and fresh. It's just what it just kind of adds to make this place really special for me anyways. The people there too were really cool. And it was also like one of the first places that I went to that somebody approached me and, started a conversation, this old man. And he's like, oh, like, where are you from? And he's talking to me in French. And then he, like, at the end of our conversation, just like, thank you for coming here. Like, thank you for visiting our country. We really appreciate you being here. I was like, holy shit, you're welcome. Like, but anyways, I just thought that was so cool. It was kind of a really interesting moment. But I guess, you also have to be realistic. If you're going to Morocco, like anywhere, Morocco can be dangerous. There have been, hostage takings, shit like that. So you do have to be on your toes. So, like, if you're planning to visit the country, use caution, use your common sense, and bribe the cops if you need to. And your trip should be fine. Anyways, my name is Phil. Cheers, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Two Beers Till Takeoff. Do you want free additional content or just to stay connected with the show? Then give us a follow on our social media platform. That means TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. Are you in need of podcast production services, video editing, or anything in between? Then look no further than Strut Sound Productions, the official producer of the Two Beers Till Takeoff podcast. Music produced by Alex Gagné. Check out his work in our show notes. Voiceover done by Viking Leo K. See you next week on Two Beers Till Takeoff.